Every morning, many people wake up with a nagging feeling that their true potential remains unrealized, as if they are stuck in place and unable to move forward. In such moments, it's easy to succumb to self-criticism, labeling oneself as lazy, unmotivated, or even a failure. But what if behind this feeling of inaction lies something more than just a reluctance to work? In reality, the lack of forward movement may not be caused by laziness per se, but by a deep disconnect from one's true purpose, a loss of direction and meaning in life. This is a state where a person ceases to understand where they are going and why. By the end of this exploration, everyone will be able to gain powerful knowledge that will help rediscover themselves and ignite their inner fire. The revelation that will be presented in the conclusion has the potential to fundamentally change the perception of one's own life. Thus begins a journey into the depths of human experience where philosophy, psychology, and timeless wisdom come together to illuminate the path forward. Together we will discover truths that inspire, enlighten, and empower, offering tools to overcome life's difficulties and find clarity in moments of doubt. When a person calls themselves lazy, what do they really mean? In today's world, where value is often measured by busyness and productivity is equated with significance, it's easy to succumb to pressure. If one doesn't achieve something tangible and measurable, society seems to whisper that they are failing or falling behind. But is this really a fair and objective measure of value? The profound wisdom of Carl Jung states, "Clarity of vision comes only when your gaze is directed inward. The external observer dreams, the internal one awakens." This thought opens our eyes to a truth that many of us overlook. The feeling of being lost often arises from an excessive focus on external attributes of success and a desire for the approval of others, while the inner voice guiding us to true self-fulfillment remains unheard. When we feel stuck or as if we are spinning our wheels, the reason isn't always a lack of diligence or self-discipline. Often, it's due to an internal dissonance. When our actions don't align with our deepest beliefs and values, the mind and body resist when they lack a sense of meaning and harmony with our true essence. Remember moments when you were filled with inspiration from working on a project, a dream, or even a simple idea. In such periods, the feeling of laziness is unlikely to arise because motivation is born naturally when we are connected to what is truly important to us. What is sometimes mistakenly taken for laziness may be a signal, an internal message that we have deviated from our true path. Abraham Maslow, the eminent psychologist who created the famous hierarchy of needs, considered self-actualization as the highest stage of personal development. This is the stage when a person fully realizes their potential and finds a deep meaning in existence. However, the path to this summit requires an awareness that periods of confusion or apathy are not manifestations of weakness, but signs of impending change. These are moments when old attitudes and beliefs lose their relevance, and new ones have not yet taken shape. Despite the discomfort, such transitional stages can be the most transformative in life. It is worth taking time for self-analysis and asking oneself, what am I running from? What dreams or aspirations am I putting on the back burner, considering them too complex, uncertain, or unattainable? Sometimes we prefer to label ourselves lazy because it's easier than facing the fear of failure or the discomfort of the unknown. However, it is those very dreams that we have buried that can become the key to reviving our purpose and passion. They can point the way to a new, more complete and meaningful existence, filled with energy and inspiration. The Danish thinker Søren Kierkegaard likened the feeling of being lost to wandering through vast and unknown expanses. At first, everything around throws you into a state of confusion, and it is extremely difficult to determine which direction to move in. However, if you stop, look closely, and reflect, you begin to notice subtle signs, features of the terrain, the movement of a celestial body, or the murmur of water, indicating the right path. Similarly, when life circumstances lead to a dead end, the answers often lie in those quiet moments that we so diligently avoid. In today's world permeated with all kinds of connections and communications, silence and tranquility may seem alien and abnormal. We fill our days with noise, distractions, and an endless stream of tasks just to avoid being alone with ourselves. But therein lies the paradox. It is in such moments of silence that the truth begins to become clear. When we disconnect from external noise and turn inward, we begin to hear the quiet voice of our intuition, a voice that knows what is truly valuable to us. What if the reason for feeling lost lies not in a perceived failure, but in a call to something greater? What if this moment of alienation is the way our mind and soul are prompting us to rethink the life we have lived? It's not a defeat, but an invitation, a chance to come into harmony with a deeper and more authentic version of ourselves. Throughout human history, outstanding minds and talents have often faced periods of disorientation and doubt. Consider Leonardo da Vinci, who could immerse himself in periods of apparent passivity, spending days or even weeks in contemplation, sketching, or deep reflection. To an outside observer, it might have seemed that he was wasting precious time. However, it was during these moments of silence and peace that his creative potential was born, giving the world discoveries that forever changed the course of history. It is worth asking ourselves, what if we change our perception of these periods of stagnation, viewing them not as a manifestation of failure, but as a necessary step on the path to personal growth and self-discovery? What if this time is given to us to stop, look around, and rediscover what is truly valuable to us? Let's delve into the reasons for this universal disconnection from ourselves. Why do so many people in the modern world feel lost and disoriented? The answer lies in the attitudes and beliefs that are formed in us from childhood. From a young age, we are imposed with a certain scenario for success. Study hard, get a reliable job, save money, buy a house, and ensure a comfortable old age. And although these steps can give life a certain structure and stability, they do not answer the main question: what fills our life with meaning and content? Consider the wise words of Viktor Frankl, an outstanding psychiatrist who went through the horrors of the Holocaust and the author of the profound book, Man's Search for Meaning. He argued, life never becomes unbearable because of external circumstances, but only because of the loss of meaning and purpose. Frankl's work serves as a powerful reminder that even in the most favorable conditions, the absence of purpose can turn into a feeling of inner emptiness, while the presence of meaning can support a person in times of unimaginable trials. If you are constantly feeling lost, perhaps the reason lies in the fact that the life scenario offered to you no longer corresponds to your inner aspirations. Perhaps you have reached certain social heights, but have not found satisfaction. Or, on the contrary, difficulties on the way to these achievements have created a sense of your own inadequacy. In any case, the root of the problem is not in simple laziness, but in the lack of harmony between your actions and deep values. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, what are your true values? Not the ones that you think you should share, but the ones that are really important to you. Perhaps it's creativity, a desire for communication, personal growth, or a desire to benefit others. Unfortunately, many people do not find time to define their key values, but they are the foundation of a meaningful life. Without them, a person can easily feel the aimlessness of their existence, as if they are wandering through life without a compass. Not knowing where to go next, from a psychological point of view, the state of being lost is often explained by existential frustration, a deep feeling of dissatisfaction arising from the discrepancy between our actions and the need for meaningful existence. This is not just a negative experience, but an important signal coming from within, indicating the need to revise one's life path and reassess priorities. How do you begin the process of returning to yourself and finding direction? The first step is to accept the current state. It may seem paradoxical, but resisting the feeling of being lost only intensifies despair. Instead, it is important to recognize your emotions, to realize that this is a temporary stage, a natural part of the human experience. Even the most successful people have faced periods of uncertainty and doubt. The difference between those who find their way lies in their willingness to meet these feelings with curiosity rather than with condemnation. Imagine life as a boundless, unexplored ocean. At the moment, you may feel adrift, without visible landmarks. However, like sailors using the stars for navigation, each of us has internal tools that can point the right direction: intuition, passions, and values. The task is to trust these tools, even when the path ahead seems unclear and foggy. One proven way to establish a deep connection with your inner world is to keep a journal. Entrust your reflections, fears, and innermost desires to paper without restraining yourself with criticism. Unleash your subconscious. Allow it to pour out unreservedly. Over time, you'll notice certain trends, like beacons pointing to your true values and aspirations. The practice of mindfulness is equally effective. Dedicate time to silence and tranquility, immersing yourself in a meditative state, or simply being alone with your thoughts. In these moments of self-analysis, insights may arise that are usually drowned out by the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Another important aspect is refraining from comparing yourself to others. Modern society and social media constantly show us carefully curated glimpses of other people's triumphs and achievements. It's easy to succumb to the temptation and believe that everyone around you is succeeding while you're struggling to keep up. However, it's worth remembering that these glossy images reflect only a small part of someone else's life. Everyone, regardless of their apparent well-being, experiences moments of insecurity and doubt. Reflecting on all of the above, ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped evaluating yourself based on other people's criteria and focused on your unique life path? What if those very traits that you consider shortcomings or failures are actually hidden strengths waiting for their moment? Reflecting on the seasons, one can draw a parallel to human life, where each stage has its unique role. Like natural cycles, including phases of flowering, fruiting, withering, and rebirth, humans also experience similar periods. A sense of lostness may be related to being in a phase of withering or rest, when outdated habits and character traits die off, preparing the ground for future changes. It's important not to avoid this period, but to use it for self-analysis, restoration, and preparation for further growth. In ancient Greek philosophy, there is the concept of kairos, which denotes the most opportune moment for action. Unlike chronological time, kairos implies time filled with meaning and harmony. Feeling lost may indicate that now is not the time for radical change. Instead, you should focus on gathering information, developing your inner world, and waiting for the right moment to act. Having recognized your current situation and the reasons for feeling lost, it's time to find ways to move forward. It's important not to force events or try to be someone you're not. It's about finding small but meaningful steps that will help you return to your true self. One of the most significant and transformative steps on the path to yourself is reconnecting with your own passions. Ask yourself, what brings you genuine joy? What activities absorb you so much that you forget about time? As a rule, it is these activities that ignite your inner fire, reminding you of your true essence, free from society's imposed expectations. It is worth noting that passion does not always manifest itself in bright and large-scale forms. It can be quiet and imperceptible, like the satisfaction of solving a complex puzzle, the peace of mind when tending to a garden, or the delight of discovering new knowledge. The main thing is to start small. Reviving your passions doesn't require radical changes, just create moments of connection with what fills you with life energy. This process is closely related to the concept of flow, proposed by psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is a state of deep immersion in an activity, when the sense of time disappears and attention is fully focused on the present moment. Discovering activities that can bring you into this state can be a powerful tool in combating feelings of lostness. Such moments remind you that life is not only about external achievements, but also about the experience of deep involvement in the process. An important step on the path to regaining a sense of direction is rethinking personal goals. In moments of confusion, there is a temptation to give in to apathy and abandon long-term planning, which seems like an impossible task. However, it is worth remembering that goals do not have to be immutable and perfect. They serve as guidelines, indicating the general direction of movement. Start by formulating a small but meaningful goal that you can realistically achieve within the next week or month. This could be reading an interesting book, learning a new hobby, or communicating with someone you admire. Such small achievements give momentum, demonstrating the possibility of progress even in conditions of uncertainty. When setting new goals, it is necessary to show compassion to yourself. Often, people become the strictest critics of themselves, making excessive demands and condemning themselves for the slightest failures. However, as Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh noted, to love yourself is to understand yourself. Self-compassion is not an excuse for weaknesses, but an acknowledgement of one's human nature, the inevitability of difficulties on the path of development, and the right to a benevolent attitude toward oneself. Imagine how existence would be transformed if each person learned to treat themselves with the same warmth and empathy they generously give to their friends. What if, instead of branding periods of confusion as failures, we perceive them as valuable lessons and steps toward personal growth? Another powerful tool for self-improvement is gratitude. In moments of uncertainty, the human mind tends to focus on shortcomings and problems, overshadowing all the good. Gratitude, on the other hand, changes the angle of vision, allowing one to see the beauty and richness that already exist in life. Make it a habit to daily note, even in writing, 3 things for which you feel grateful. This simple practice will eventually retrain the brain, teaching it to notice positive moments, which in turn will strengthen resilience to stress and fill life with a sense of completeness. It is equally important to maintain connections with others. Isolation only amplifies the feeling of being lost, preventing one from seeing the perspective. Reach out to friends, family, or mentors who can inspire and support you. Share your experiences and fears with them. You may be surprised to learn how many people have faced similar difficulties. Sometimes realizing that you are not alone in your experiences can be a powerful source of comfort and an incentive to move forward. Let's also consider the destructive influence of fear, which stands as one of the most serious barriers on the thorny path of rethinking life goals. Fear of failure, fear of public censure, fear of impending changes. All this can tie a person hand and foot, keeping them within the framework of familiar but already obsolete models of behavior. However, fear should not be perceived as a hostile force, because it is just a natural reaction of the psyche to leaving the comfort zone, a kind of signal that the individual is on the threshold of significant growth and development. Instead of avoiding frightening situations, one should boldly face their fears. It is necessary to ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen, and what positive consequences can be achieved? Often, the benefits that open up after overcoming fear far outweigh the potential risks. As you move along the path of self-discovery, it is important to remember the concept of changing seasons, which was mentioned earlier. A feeling of confusion and lostness may indicate the onset of a winter period, a time of silence and deep self-analysis. However, winter is not the final point, but rather a period of preparation, a necessary stage before the long-awaited spring revival. One should believe that this period will definitely pass, and when it does, the individual will become stronger, wiser, and find greater harmony with their true self. Let's recall the story of J.K. Rowling, the author of the cult series of books about Harry Potter, whose path to the heights of fame was strewn with thorns. She experienced a period of despair, being an unemployed single mother, desperately trying to provide for herself and her child. It was during this difficult time that she began to create a world of magic, which subsequently won the hearts of millions of readers. As Rowling herself admitted, hitting rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I was able to build a new life. Perhaps each person's personal story is unique, but the general principle remains unchanged. A feeling of lostness is not a verdict, but rather an opportunity for rethinking, self-discovery, and renewal. In the following narrative, an idea will be revealed that can radically change the perception of oneself and one's place in this world. As we move towards the culmination of this reasoning, it is necessary to look in the face of the deepest truth hidden in the state of lostness. This awareness has the potential to transform everything. Being lost is not a tragedy, but a valuable gift. It is this state that opens the door to a reassessment of one's personality, life priorities, and plans for the future. In moments when the feeling of lostness envelops us like a thick fog, it is important to remember this state often foreshadows profound changes. Imagine a dense forest. Getting lost in its thicket, when the paths are lost from sight, it is easy to give in to despair. However, it is in this forest that countless opportunities lie. Unexplored paths, sun-drenched glades, and entire ecosystems pulsating with life. Lostness in the forest forces us to stop, carefully examine everything around us, and listen to our instincts. Similarly, a feeling of lostness in life serves as a call to rethink one's inner self. One of the most effective ways to overcome this state is to awaken curiosity within oneself. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" reframe it to, "What lessons can I learn from this situation?" Curiosity can transform difficulties into new opportunities, presenting obstacles as stepping stones to personal growth. Let's consider the concept of purpose. Many believe that purpose is something grand and difficult to achieve, a unique mission that defines one's entire life. But what if purpose isn't a final destination, but a continuous process? What if it's formed through small, conscious actions taken daily? Viktor Frankl emphasized that purpose isn't something we find, but something we create ourselves, choosing a specific reaction to life's circumstances. Look at the cycle of routine that makes up your days. What modest actions fill your heart with a sense of satisfaction or quiet joy? Perhaps it's selfless support of a friend, mastering uncharted horizons, or simply taking care of your own well-being. These moments may seem fleeting and insignificant, but together they form a solid foundation for a life filled with meaning and purpose. When attention is focused on these small but purposeful actions, a person gradually regains a sense of direction, taking step by step towards self-realization. Another transformative idea is to view life as a series of exciting experiments. When a sense of loss envelops the mind, there is a natural fear of making the wrong decision. But what if you discard the very concept of wrong decisions, replacing it with opportunities for valuable learning and growth? Adopting an experimental mindset allows you to boldly try new ventures without burdening yourself with the pursuit of perfection. Whether it's exploring a new career path, launching a creative project you've always dreamed of, or stepping outside your comfort zone, consider each experience as a chance to gather invaluable information about what resonates with your soul, what makes your heart beat faster. Now let's turn to the last and perhaps most powerful realization. You are not as lost as you think. The truth is that deep within your being, the answers to your burning questions are already hidden. They may be buried under a thick layer of fears, doubts, or socially imposed expectations, but they haven't disappeared, patiently waiting for the moment when you discover and release them. This realization is both liberating and challenging, as it returns responsibility for your life into your own hands. It calls for trusting yourself, listening to the voice of intuition, and acting even when the path ahead seems foggy and uncertain. It is worth pondering that every significant achievement originates with a single step, often taken in conditions of complete uncertainty. The pioneers who discovered new lands, the inventors who created from nothing, and ordinary people who overcame colossal obstacles began their journey without a clear idea of the end result. They were united by a desire to move forward, meeting the unknown with courage and an inquisitive mind. Reflecting on this life journey, it is helpful to remember the words of poet Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? This question serves as a call to take responsibility for your destiny. No one can live it for you, and no one else's understanding of success or happiness can replace your own. Your time is now. What steps will you take on the path to self-discovery and redefinition? Will you immerse yourself in silence to gain clarity of thought? Will you reconnect with your passions, core values, and intuition? Or will you take a bold step, believing that the path forward will open up as you progress? Feeling lost is not a dead end, but rather a starting point for future change, an opportunity to rethink your life, guided by personal beliefs and aspirations. Do not label yourself as lazy, apathetic, or unsuccessful. Everyone who faces life's challenges demonstrates remarkable courage and resilience. It is important to realize that the current period plays an important role in shaping your personality, even if it is not yet obvious. Believe that clarity, purpose, and life satisfaction are achievable. This path belongs to you, and its beginning is